Good evening, everyone. Welcome and thank you all for being here. I hope you're staying safe wherever you may be joining from. Um, my name is Ricardo Hernandez. I'm the Assistant Director of Programs and Partnerships here at Poets and Writers. I'm joined by the Director of Programs and Partnerships, Jared Jackson. Um, welcoming you all. I will be your host for the evening. Before we launch into the main event, a reading from the 9 talented authors who comprise this year's Get the Word Out fiction cohort. I wanted to share just a few words about Poets and Writers and how we arrived at tonight's event. So for those of you who may be unfamiliar, Poets and Writers, established in 1970, is the largest nonprofit serving creative writers in the country. Each year, tens of thousands of poets, fiction writers, and creative nonfiction writers benefit from our programs, which include our eponymous magazine, of course, our information-rich website, pw.org, financial sponsorship of readings and other literary events, our online classes and workshops, and sponsorship of several notable writing prizes and awards. In 2022, we added to our repertoire programming with the launch of Get the Word Out, a publicity incubator for early career authors. Building on Poets and Writers' work, supporting writers as they navigate the practical aspects of publishing, Get the Word Out was designed and envisioned to help writers develop and execute publicity strategies to maximize the exposure of their soon-to-be published books, reach readers, and create a platform to propel their literary careers. Since its launch, the program has brought together over 50 authors, representing more than 20 small and independent presses. And I invite you all to learn more about the program and past cohorts by visiting pw.org/get the word out. I'll drop a link in the meeting chat in just a second. Over the last 3 months or so, the 9 authors you'll be hearing from this evening conferred each week to strategize publicity for their forthcoming books, learn from visiting publishing professionals, including most recently author R.O. Kwon and a beautiful founder, Adam Vidkavage. And they've reflected on their publishing journeys, all under the mentorship of Jennifer Huang. I will speak for the programs and partnerships team at Poets and Writers when I say that we really are honored for your participation in the program. And we're excited to follow your careers in the years to come. So that's it for me. Now, to set us up for tonight's main event, it's my pleasure to introduce the Fellow's lead mentor, Jennifer Huang. Jennifer is a freelance publicist at Central Lit and the author of Return Flight. Previously a publicist at Riverhead Books and the Shipman Agency, Jennifer enjoys working with authors and books that don't neatly fit into one box and helping authors do publicity in a way that feels true to themselves. In their spare time, Jennifer enjoys walking wherever they can, eating popsicles, same, and learning new crafts. Jennifer lives on the Southern Oregon coast. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer Huang.
Oh, I'm suddenly spotlighted. Okay. Thank you so much, Ricardo, for the introduction. And hello, everybody. I first want to take a moment to thank Poets and Writers for hosting the Get the Word Out program, and also for the amazing work that Ricardo and Jared have done behind the scenes to really make the program work. It's been really awesome to work with you guys. And thank you everyone for being here tonight as we celebrate the incredible writing and achievements of this year's fiction cohort. The path to publishing a book is anything but easy. There's the writing, the revisions, then the submissions process and the waiting, and then finally the moment when a book is no longer yours. It's out in the world, finding its readers. That moment is both exhilarating and nerve-wracking, thrilling and vulnerable, and it's one these authors are embarking on. Through this program, I've tried to give the cohort an approach to publicity that recognizes what outward success looks like and moves toward what inward success feels like and is. For each author, that was different. In turn, I've had the joy of witnessing the cohort's dedication and growth. I watched as elevator pitches became sharper and strategies and ideas took shape. Beyond practical skills, what has truly stood out is the spirit of collaboration and support within this cohort. They've lifted each other up, shared insights, and navigated challenges together. It's a reminder of how powerful community can be. This is a really ambitious group, a genuinely funny group. There hasn't been a class where I didn't have a good laugh, and a deeply thoughtful group. These qualities shine through in the excerpts we'll hear tonight. Their books explore worlds ranging from professional volleyball leagues to prestigious college cliques. They take us to places like South Africa, Singapore, New England, and Louisiana, and they delve into themes of consumption, identity and belonging, and queer family making. It's really been such an honor to work with you all and to get to know you. Meeting together every week has been just like amazing to be a part of this group. And so I want to thank you for your words and your imagination, and also congratulations on publication or almost publication. Yay. And now I have the pleasure of introducing our first reader, Yu-Mei. Yu-Mei Balasingamchow is originally from Singapore and now lives in Boston. She has an MFA from Boston University, and her short stories have received a Pushcart Prize special mention and won the Mississippi Review Fiction Prize. She has received grants and fellowships from the Elizabeth George Foundation, Sewanee Writers Conference, and elsewhere. Her debut novel, Names Have Been Changed, will be published by Tiny Reparations Books in 2026. It follows a woman who fled Singapore after committing a crime and is now coming clean on her podcast about 10 years of misdeeds and adventures. So welcome to the stage, Yu-Mei.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining us here tonight. It's really special that you all have decided to spend the next hour with us. I'm going to read from chapter 2 of my novel, Names Have Been Changed. So yes, it is about a woman who has committed a crime in Singapore, fled the scene, and is wandering the world. In chapter 2, she has landed in Tokyo. It's been several months she's on the run. And the main thing is she's been keeping to herself, trying to figure out what she's going to do next. And she also needs to earn money. So here we go. In Tokyo, I was working at a hostess bar. I was paid to put on a slinky outfit and sit pretty, look good, and make conversation, laugh and drink with men. People were always handing out flyers for that kind of work at the big subway stations. A few made it clear that the goal was to coax customers into private rooms for sex and other activities. Not my cup of tea. Another club promised I would make at least $500 a night, but I'd have to give them my passport. Pro tip, don't ever hand over your passport to anyone, even if it's a fake. Then I saw an ad for Bistro Boulevard, the name printed in Baroque cursive script, and voila! No funny business on the premises, no pressure to go on dates with customers or sleep with them or negotiate special services. It was in the Ikebukuro district. The woman who owned it was Japanese, and she went by the name Cosette. She was excited when we met because I spoke good English, and I was Asian, but not Filipino or Japanese. Exotic, she called me, ruffling my hair. It was the first time anyone had touched me since I'd arrived in Japan, and I felt a little sizzle as her hand drifted down my cheek. That's what Cosette's place was about, you see. A light touch, a tease, a suggestion. One slender, soft fingertip running whimsically across the fine hairs on your forearm. No groping or grabbing, nothing so crass. If a customer got too drunk or out of hand, Hero would very firmly shove him out the door. Hero was the bouncer. Big, burly, yes, kind of like a sumo wrestler. He didn't speak much English, so I never found out if Hero was his real name or just something convenient for us girls to shout when we needed help. The name Cosette gave me was Amélie, although she had trouble pronouncing the L sound, so it sounded like Amélie. She took the French theme very seriously. Fairy lights in blue, red, and white, hostess of the Eiffel Tower and the Arc de Triomphe, Edith Piaf and Nina Simone playing all night, sometimes the dance remix versions as well. The bar served the requisite salaryman favorites, sake, whiskey, and beer. Also absinthe, Sazeracs, and French 75s, which another hostess told me originated in her hometown, New Orleans. In the back room was a wardrobe of cocktail dresses, and we scrabbled among us for something that wouldn't be uncomfortable to flounce around in for the next 8 hours. We hustled to get ready before the bar opened, clothes flying all over, squinting at ourselves in a corner of the mirror while applying eyeshadow and glitter lipstick. In the midst of that, half naked and still groggy from the previous night's drinking, was where I met Gigi. The first thing I saw were her boobs. She was taller than me, quite statuesque actually, for an Asian woman, about the same height as the Russians and Ukrainians. Her skin was almost as brown as mine, so I guessed she was Filipino. As I was struggling into my outfit for the night, we got squeezed up against each other. Do you need help with the zipper? That was the first thing Gigi said to me, and right away I knew she was Singaporean. Can you hear it? Do you need help with the zipper? It's not American, British, or Australian, no rolled R's or exaggerated vowels. Most Asian people who speak English don't sound like that. A certain kind of Singaporean, though, they can do a bland, neutral kind of English, almost accentless. That's what Gigi had. I thought, how come a Singaporean's working here? Does she know about my crime? And why is she being nice to me? It was my first week at Bistro Boulevard, and already I knew this wasn't the sort of place where you made friends. The women were focused on how much they would earn each night and how much they wanted to make before they quit doing this forever. No one wanted to smile if they weren't being paid for it, not after hours of asking the same old questions. What whiskey do you like? Have you been to France? America? England? What's your favorite food? Who's your favorite Gaijin actress? And getting one-word replies from hesitant, work-worn men who had only a smattering of English. To Gigi, I responded with one of the safest words you can say in English without giving away an accent. Okay. She helped me with the dress and asked what I was doing in Tokyo. I told her the story I'd given Cosette. I was from Hong Kong, I said. I needed to make some money before I went home. Gigi said, I'm from Singapore. I said, oh, I lived there when I was a child. What the hell, right? Why did I say that? Luckily, Cosette was calling. It was opening time. When Gigi and I talked again later, I worked out my cover story. I said my father had run a business in Singapore and I'd attended primary school there. That would be enough to explain why I understood Singlish if Gigi used it. Singlish is hard to fake if you haven't lived in Singapore and interacted a lot with the locals. When I heard Gigi speak, I knew the biggest risk was that I would respond with my real voice, not only saying yeah instead of yes, but full on with a sentence that only a Singaporean would say. Let me think of an example. Okay, here's one. How come it happened like that? It makes me fucking sentimental to hear that part of myself. One more time. How come it happened like that? Thank you very much. That was my excerpt. I'm going to introduce the next reader, Roohi Choudhry. Roohi Choudhry was born in Pakistan and grew up in Southern Africa. She holds an MFA in creative writing from the University of Michigan, and her stories and essays have appeared in Plowshares, Callaloo, Long Reads, and the Kenyan Review. She works as a researcher in criminal justice reform and public health, wrote for the United Nations, and facilitates creative writing workshops for community organizations. Her debut novel, Outside Women, oh no, you can't, oh no, Zoom is blurring it. Well, it's okay. Roohi will show it. Her debut novel, Outside Women, is out now from the University of Kentucky Press. Over to Roohi.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Here it is, Outside Women. Out just last week. I'm super excited and really excited to be here with all of you. Thank you so much for taking out your Wednesday evening with us. And thank you also to Jennifer Huang, like publicity mentor extraordinaire. Just couldn't have gotten through these barf-ridden 3 months without you. And to this cohort, my new BFFs, thank you. And hope we have many more years and books together. Outside Women is set in South Africa, Pakistan, and New York, and it intertwines the stories of two migrant women. One is historical, one is contemporary, but both have the same decision to make, which is whether to risk their own lives to save someone else. And I'm just going to read from the beginning. So here it goes. I should board the train home. But it runs above ground, so the city will dance far below me as I ride past. When I tap my head against the window, I'll watch blurred movement through glass. I prefer to wait until dark when my own reflection is all that stares back. For now, I'll walk along the East River and imagine I'm part of the city, like a grain of sand seen from above. Here's a couple on their first date. Carefully unsaid words rest between them on the bench. A woman pulls up the zipper to her daughter's bright pink jackets and pats her chest safe. An old man feeds gulls from a plastic bag pocked with reuse. His stale bread spins like a cricket ball across the water. A taxi driver pulls up to the curb. As he idles for his next ride, he nudges his door open. He spits onto the sidewalk and glances up as he pulls the door shut. He licks the spittle off his lips and sucks in his mustache a little. His eyes are bloodshot and circled dark. His beard is more stubble than purpose. Can it be? He's older than I remember, but so am I. In an unexpected blink, my secrets are on display, my body frozen, breath tight. Surely he is not permitted here. This city is my sanctuary. We exchange glances for a single instant. In that pause, his eyes widen. I think his expression changes. Boredom to recognition. A siren breaks through and he shifts his gaze. He leans back in his seat and stretches his arms in a yawn. I am no one to him. Almost 5 years have passed since I arrived in this city from Pakistan. I've made it mine. At the university, I've struck up friendships with other graduate students and adopted their jeans and t-shirt uniform, though it fits uneasily over my curves. I've softened the edges of my name to suit their tongues. The hard jeem in the middle of my hajra has become a languorous je. I even met and lost a man who loved me, an American who thought he knew me. But now, the New York cyclists and playground and seagulls fade. Instead, ghoulish images from my old world rear up. A woman who twitched and breathed shallow at my feet. My outstretched fingers were afraid to touch her. I saw the beat-up blue sedan screech away that day, but not before I exchanged a look with the man in the passenger seat. His eyes were sharp with the righteous scorn. I could recognize them anywhere, even here, half a world away. I must not think. I must not lose my nerve. One foot in front of the other, pull open the door and slide into the cab. First addressed to mind is a classmate's old place on the Upper West Side. I dare not give him my own. Inside, the taxi company ID card confirms. Mohsin Khan. His picture sports the unkempt beard I remember. The cab peels up a few streets to First Avenue. Look up, look up. He is focused on the road, but glances at the rear view. Our eyes meet. I duck my head, quick tug at my ponytail so knotted curls obscure my face. What have I done? I'm trapped in his back seat. Once again, I'm just a girl in his domain. His eyes are still on me, brows pulled into a question. My jaw is tight. I want to bare my teeth and growl. Don't you remember me? Or am I another voiceless animal from your crosshairs? Here in my bag is a pen, a trembling scribble, and I've got his medallion number on my hand. My hand is a fist. He breaks, and I am ready. My door swings open. Every door is wide open. I'm running without sight through the sirens and descending darkness, and steam rising up from grates, and a burst of sparrows fluttering over crumbs. A second time, on a second continent, I've escaped him. I'll stop there. Thank you. And it is my pleasure to introduce my new friend, Kerry Donoghue. Kerry Donoghue's poetry and stories have appeared in Ninth Letter, Painted Bride Quarterly, Permafrost, the Louisville Review, and the South Carolina Review, among other journals. She's also the author of The Loudest Voice of All, a children's book she wrote to fundraise for an organization that educates girls about the power of voting. She earned an MFA in writing from the University of San Francisco, Her debut story collection, Mouth, is now out from Unsolicited Press as part of their Year of Women lineup. Welcome, Kerry.
Thank you, Roohi. That was beautiful. And thank you for letting me be here and for including me. This is such a talented group of writers and leaders, and I'm super grateful to be included. So thank you. I'm going to read from Mouth tonight. This is my new short story collection, and this is a story called Jenny. Everyone begins in darkness. Rippling from a quiet explosion, we all bound forward into the unknown, and we wait, though we're terrible at waiting, while time and water and luck churn to make us bigger, stronger, more complete, until we wail into this world. Lungs terrified as we leave the life aquatic. Somehow we adapt, stand, walk, run, grass to dirt to dust. But not for me. The wail continued, a low thrumming in the ear, a whisper whirlpooling inside the conch. Dive in, go back. Take one look at this glittering tail to see just how ready I am. My routine steadies me. First, I set the space heater to 77 degrees and clip a travel fan to the toilet paper holder. Once the bathroom feels balmy, I scatter the tub with fistfuls of landscaping sand. After that, I need a solid 10 minutes to ease into the bathtub. It's not easy maneuvering alone. I'm built like a seal, though not as lithe. Add the athletic bandages swathing me thigh to ankle, plus 2 yards of seafoam green tulle layered around that, and I can't rush. But oh, the luxury and limitation. Once I'm situated, there's nothing to do but admire my long, sparkling practice tail. Sapphire dorsal, turquoise underside, and 2 scalloped clamshells giving my chest its best life. There I am, glittering under the wan bathroom light, alone but illuminated. The real me, without acne-pitted cheeks or springtime allergies or a reliance on my feet to get around. In the water, I'm ablaze. My real tail has been hanging in the bedroom closet for the past year, like the promise of a wedding dress. And like a bride, I haven't shown anyone what's inside the garment bag yet. Instead, I've been elbow deep in sequins most evenings, stitching glittering scales into a pattern inspired by parrotfish. I knocked out the final row last night, only to find myself in tears. It's all within reach. On days when I feel like I'm nothing more than a slug sliming across a straw doormat, I slip into my tail and flap gently in front of my bedroom mirror. Maybe rest my hands on my hips, posing like the Jenny Hanover nailed above my bed. To most people, Jenny's just an old, dried stingray, folded to look like a seductress with a tail. Kitsch from a bygone era, a lie hand-fashioned by sailors, hoping to impress loved ones once they've returned home. But to me, she's more than that. The impossible made possible, she always says. A lighthouse marking my horizon, assuring me that I'm close, so close. With an indulgent flick like I'm taunting an armada, I slip under. Truth be told, I've never seen the ocean. Born and bred on a sunflower farm outside Topeka, I know all about the choking expanse of earth and sky, the curse of solitude and land. I know exactly how you can suffocate from too much air. Though the day-to-day of my life is swept up in the concrete tsunami of Los Angeles, the very beach I dream of just a quick drive away, I've never once touched the sand. And I've been here in Culver City 3 years now. Instead, I let gridlock and hookah bars and rundown donut shops break water against the reality I've been too scared to face. Because what if it's not as good as I imagined? Or worse, what if it is? My roommate has no idea I mermaid. Marie and I met when, in a boldness fueled by some fancy Chardonnay a client had gifted me, I advertised my spare bedroom online, hopeful I'd make a new friend. Marie was the only one who responded to my ad. When we met for boba, she showed up with a big gulp and said, "It's going to be more of a crash pad situation, you know?" I appreciated that. It's not often people show you who they really are. I've never had roommates, never had a ton of close friends either, and that didn't change once I moved out here. Socializing in LA dries me up. Maybe it's the unrelenting sunshine that exhausts me, or the lazy mouth speech, fried and perpetually questioning, right? Even the most mundane conversations mushing out like you've stepped in freshly chewed gum. I tense with every, "What do you do?" These conversations never about an actual interest in my job, but quick career calculations, what they might get from me, who I could introduce them to, which is why I thought having a roommate would deliver a built-in friend, or at least bridge the gulf of my loneliness. It hasn't, but thankfully I've got Laurel, my lovely Laurel, who electrified my sea the minute I walked into her toy store. I mean, talk about fate. I live a pretty quiet life doing toy voiceovers, mostly for babies. The playmat where the golden-haired princess pops up to yodel the alphabet? That's me. Or the buck-toothed dragon plushie that giggles when you squish its belly? Yep, me again. The royalties fund my sequins and waterproofing. But recording in the studio every month is more than that. I'm alive when I'm drenched in the spotlight of that dank recording booth, my voice a North Star. Of course, the minute I step out of the booth, I'm nobody again. But every time Maya, my favorite soundie, equalizes me to perfection, I matter. And that's enough to make me want to keep mattering. Thank you. All right, up next we have Lacey. Lacey N. Dunham's novel, The Bells, is forthcoming in September 2025 from Atria. A queer working-class writer and first-generation college graduate, she has received support from the Elizabeth George Foundation, the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities, the Sewanee Writers Conference as a Tennessee Williams Scholar, and Catapult as a Merit Scholar. Her writing appears in Plowshares, Witness, Kenyon Review, The Normal School, Southwest Review, and McSweeney's Internet Tendency, and elsewhere. The Bells is dark academia with a Southern Gothic twist about the dangerous side of girlhood, the intricacies of privilege, and the unbridled desire to belong at any cost. This excerpt is from the novel's opening chapter. The protagonist, Dina, has just arrived at her college campus in Virginia. The year is 1951. Get it, Lacey.
Thanks so much, Kerry, and thanks to everyone for being here and listening to all of us read. Thanks to poets and writers for putting the cohort together, and Ricardo and Jared specifically. Jennifer, Mentor of the Year, thank you so much. And of course, thanks to all my fellow authors whose books I am so excited to add to my bookshelves and to read and to share joyously with everyone I know all throughout this year and into next year, because some are coming out next year. All right. She had done it. Traveled 5 hours through 3 Virginia counties to arrive at Bellarton College as someone different than who she had been yesterday, or this morning, or even an hour earlier. She'd had no idea what new life she was embarking on when she climbed into the cab at the Greyhound station and the driver loaded her brand new chic Miss suitcases into the trunk. Now, with golden light flooding the campus and the air thick with humidity, she was eager for it all to begin. She was ready to fulfill the promise of attending Bellarton as Miss Dina Evangeline Williams. She held tightly onto her pocketbook, which contained her acceptance letter and her last $3. She considered the stately trio of dormitories flanking the center of campus, where enormous oaks with leaves of the deepest green she had ever seen cast wide gulfs of shade over a lush quad. The mountains lay beyond, ominous. The buildings shuttered, flayed wide in defiance of the day's heat. White columns held up porticos that jutted over porches painted a deep navy and dotted with white rockers. Dina imagined how lovely it would be to sit there drinking sweet tea from a sweating glass pitcher with yellow lemon rinds floating on the top. A shadow moved on the nearest porch, and a pale hand emerged from the gloam to grip the railing. Someone was watching her. "Hello?" Dina called. She fumbled with her luggage, carrying it a few feet down the walkway, before setting it down and calling out again. A slim redhead appeared on the stone steps that led from the porch. The girl wore a tailored green and white seersucker dress, and her neck and earlobes were adorned with matching pearls. A wide-brimmed hat shaded her face. "You're in South Hall." The girl's honeyed voice sounded disbelieving. She carried herself with such self-assurance that Dina's tongue stuck to the roof of her mouth. "I see you're new here," the girl said, eyeing Dina up and down. Dina flushed, embarrassed by her foible. The day was sweltering, the sidewalk in direct sun. Her short-sleeved blouse was crumpled from hours of bus travel prior to the taxi, and sweat dampened the fabric in her armpits. The redhead was so pristine that Dina could imagine the girl's journey in contrast, riding in a large, air-conditioned white Ford with chrome teeth that gleamed viciously in the sun. Dina clutched her skirt and tried not to feel like a drab, dirty speck beside this girl. First impressions are last impressions, my mother always says. The girl extended her hand delicately, palm down, fingers curled to the ground. Dina grasped her powdery fingers with a quick shake. I'm Yu-Mei Delacour. My sister, Caroline, graduated Bellerton class of 1949. She was crowned May Queen. What's the May Queen? Dina's voice was dampened by the humidity. Yu-Mei continued as if she hadn't spoken. You know, they make us first year share bathrooms like we're in the army. My sister says it's not so bad, as long as everyone on your floor is clean. Yu-Mei smelled clean, of lye and a light perfume. Freckles dabbed her small nose, pleasant specks that made her appear refined. She was like a cat, Dina thought. One that would pounce when you thought it had been napping. Lovely to meet you. Yu-Mei brushed past Dina before she could say goodbye. And only after she was out of view did Dina realize that Yu-Mei hadn't asked for her name. She was exactly the type of woman grandmother had warned her about. Thank you. All right. I am so thrilled to introduce Shasta Grant. Shasta grew up in rural New Hampshire and now lives in Indianapolis. An Aspen Words Emerging Writer Fellow, Kenyon Review Prize winner, and recipient of writing residencies from Hedgebrook and the Kerouac Project, she holds an MFA from Sarah Lawrence College. She is the author of the chapbook Gather Us Up and Bring Us Home, a senior editor at Smoke Long Quarterly, and co-founder of Brown Bag Lit. Her debut novel, When We Were Feral, is forthcoming from Regal House in June 2026. Shasta?
Thank you, Lacey. Thank you, everyone, for being here. This is such a wonderful way to end our time together. Thank you, poets and writers, Jared and Ricardo and Jennifer, our amazing publicist mentor, and for all my cohort members. I'm going to miss these Wednesday evenings together so much, so much. I'm going to read the opening pages of my novel, When We Were Feral. I think the only thing you need to know is it's set in the early 90s and it takes place in New Hampshire. The summer Rachel Mann drowned changed everything. My mother had shoved off in late winter that same year, dirty snowbanks piled high along the edges of roads and driveways. The snow long melted. It was time to get over it, Sarah's mother said to me without using those words. It was time to move on. Besides, it wasn't as if she was dead. Being dead would be a real tragedy. Dust yourself off, pull yourself together, begin a new season. These were the kind of mantras Mrs. Roberts lived by. She bought me a swimsuit, a modest one piece, and sent me off to the beach with her daughter, trying to shape me into something resembling a proper girl. I was burning to be free of sixth grade, the year I knew would mark before and after. Before sixth grade, I had a mother. After, I did not. I was ready to heed Mrs. Roberts' advice, move on from all that. When the dismissal bell rang on the last day of school, I grabbed Sarah's hand. Together, we ran to her mother's Volvo, idling in the long line of cars. Sarah climbed into the back seat, and I followed. How was the last day, girls? Did you pick up a summer reading list? Got it in my backpack, I said, which was a lie. I had no plans to read any books that summer. Mrs. Roberts nodded her approval. She drove us to the lake, saying she couldn't stay because the sun was bad for her complexion. I pictured her pale, freckled skin on fire, burning to a crisp, falling off the bone. Sarah and I had the whole expanse of the summer ahead, all those long, sunny days with no homework, no schedules, no goals other than sunbathing and dipping our toes in the water. At the front gate, Mrs. Roberts paid both our entry fees. My father hardly ever gave me any money, rarely had any money himself. Now that we were 12, Sarah and I had to pay the adult fare. No more child discounts or kids' meals for us. I thanked Mrs. Roberts and she brushed me off, as if to say a thank you wasn't necessary when I knew that it was. She pulled the car up next to the playground, and Sarah and I got out, held the beach bag her mother had packed for us, and paused. I hoped her mother wasn't going to walk us to the beach. She motioned for us to go and then drove away with a little wave of her hand out the car window. There were two unofficial sections at the lake. The right-hand side for the mothers with babies and children, pack and play set up on the grass beneath trees, the elderly in folding beach chairs, wide-brimmed hats protecting their wrinkled faces from the rays Sarah's mother was so afraid of. The left side was for teenagers. An imaginary sign hung in the air, no kids or parents allowed. That summer, we lived in the strange space between childhood and adolescence. Our bodies, smooth and lean, were just beginning to change. Hard buds for breasts, hips slowly expanding. We inched further and further into adulthood every day, filling out in ways that excited and shamed us at the same time. We didn't belong on either side of the beach, but Mrs. Roberts had instructed us to stay on the side with the mothers and babies, so we did. Be good girls, she had said, so we were. We found an empty patch of grass a few yards from some old ladies and put the beach bag down, spread our towels on the ground. I hated it there, the way the mothers used fake voices to talk to their toddlers while spooning yogurt into their mouths, wiping the white mess from tiny lips. The way they built sandcastles together, filling buckets and tipping sand out, clapping their hands in delight. Sorry, I don't know what happened. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. Sarah said it was disgusting to do that in public, and I nodded my head in agreement, but I found it difficult not to stare. Secretly, I hoped for a glimpse of an engorged breast, a brown nipple, wondering what it felt like to be latched together like that. I tried not to think of my own mother, about why she left, about where she might be. Let's walk along the beach, Sarah said, standing up and stretching her thin legs. She was smaller than me, one of the shortest girls in class. Her father sometimes joked that he was going to put Sarah in his pocket, and it made me feel ashamed of the space I took up compared to her. I would never fit into anyone's pocket. We put on our sunglasses and walked down to the sand, past children burying their mother's feet in mud, past the concession stand and the lifeguard perched high in his tower. At the other side of the beach, we stood and watched the high school boys splashing in the water, the girls arranged on towels, stomachs bare to the sun. Their legs were shiny with oil, no coat of downy hair like our own legs. I daydreamed about making friends with these teenagers, sliding my towel next to the girls, tilting our heads together as we gossiped, walking down to the water together and flirting with the boys. I studied the way they did these things, the way they cocked their heads to the side, tucked their hair behind their ears. I wanted to be one of them. Sarah and I both felt it, I'm sure. This was where we belonged. This was the summer we wanted. Thank you. It is my pleasure to introduce our next reader, Laura. Welcome, Laura. Laura Venita Green's debut novel, Sister Creatures, is forthcoming on October 7th from Unnamed Press. Her fiction won the Story Foundation Prize, received 2 Pushcart Prize special mentions, and has appeared in Story, The Missouri Review, Joyland, and Fatal Flaw. She grew up in rural Louisiana and holds an MFA in fiction and translation from Columbia University.
Thanks so much, Shasta, and thanks to everyone for being here. My book doesn't quite have a cover yet, but it's coming soon, so please stay tuned for that. I'm just going to read the first couple pages where you'll meet the three main characters. There's Tess and Gail, whose lives will follow for almost 3 decades. And then there's Thea, an entity that shows up throughout the book in many different guises. In this beginning, she is a creepy doll. So here we go. Not too long ago, the Thompson kids' dad sold the black walnut trees behind their house for timber, and now clusters of big, sad stumps spoiled the backyard. Tess was living with and caring for the Thompson kids, 10-year-old Miles and 8-year-old Minnie, while the Thompson mom recovered in some facility for broken down women, and the Thompson dad drove a long-haul truck to try and pay for everything. During her first week on the job, Tess rummaged through the drawers in the master bedroom and came upon the receipt from the timber company. $787 for all of it. To Tess, that sounded like both a fortune and not nearly worth it. Now there was nothing to shade them from the early May sun already beating down and promising a hellscape of a summer. Miles acted as if the stumps were the best thing that had ever happened to him, and maybe they were. He was constantly inventing stuck games that called for ever-increasing acts of physical prowess that Minnie couldn't match, which was absolutely his point. Minnie, too old to play with dolls but obsessed with an ugly plastic one dressed in hand-crocheted pastel pink plantation garb that some church lady gave her right after her mom got taken away, set her doll on the lawn chair by Tess so they could both watch as she attempted a wobbly little headstand on one stump while Miles pelted her with ping pong balls from another. Be careful, Tess said because she was the grown-up, 21 next month. If Miles and Minnie had taught her anything, it was that she'd never have kids of her own, but as far as jobs went, this wasn't bad. She could spend much of her time doing the two things she loved most, drinking and reading. On her last library visit, she checked out a stack of horror books about malfunctioning women. There seemed to be no shortage of books featuring women who lose control or lose their minds, and the librarian was always good at helping her find what she liked. It was one of the good things about quitting the community college. She could read what she wanted now. As for the drinking, she was pretty good on weekdays because she had to drive the kids around, but Saturdays meant no rules. The sun shone directly overhead, and Tess was on her third vodka tonic. Lovebug season was the worst in years. Thousands of copulating insects stuck end to end for life while they drifted in flight like snowflakes. If snowflakes were black and red and drifted both down and up, Louisiana snow. Tess fished a drowned pair from her drink, flung them on the grass, and sucked from her bendy straw. After Minnie toppled out of another headstand and Miles yelled, "You suck at this," Minnie crawled over to the lawn chair and apologized to the goddamn doll. "I'm so sorry, Thea." That was its name, Minnie had announced one night last week after she'd pretended that it had whispered its name into her ear, and ever since then, that name, Thea, had wormed its way into Tess's brain. "Thea, you're so smart and pretty. If you were playing, you wouldn't fall over like I did. I'll do better, I promise." The phone rang inside the house. They'd left just the screen door shut in the back so that they could hear in case their mom called from the facility, which had not happened even one time in the 5 weeks since she'd left, but the kids were ever hopeful. At the first sound, Miles shot off his stump and darted to the house. Minnie whined after him, "It's my turn to answer the phone." "Come here," Tess said. She put her arm around Minnie's bony shoulder while the little girl sat in the crabgrass next to the lawn chair and picked love bugs from the doll's frizzy brown plastic hair, squishing them between her fingers and wiping their guts on her shorts. Tess noticed something moving in her peripheral vision and looked up to the woods that bordered the property, pine woods whose timber the Thompson dad couldn't sell because he didn't own them. It was Sister Gail again, watching. Tess shouldn't have been surprised, but she was, which irritated her. "Go away," Tess yelled, and the girl shifted behind a tree but didn't leave. Minnie clutched the doll to her chest and whispered, "Hi, Sister Gail." "Just ignore her," Tess said, and took another sip of her drink. The girl, who was maybe 14 or 15, wore a thick denim skirt with a hem that brushed the ground and a dingy blouse that covered her neck and wrists. She had scraggly white blonde hair down to her ass, Pentecostal. Everyone knew that Gail's family lived off-grid in the woods with well water and no electricity and were the most Jesus people in all of Pine Creek, a town full of Jesus people. This was the third day in a row that Gail had shown up to watch them, but wouldn't come any closer than the trees and ran off if they tried to approach, only to come back later. Tess felt suffocated just seeing her, covered in all those clothes. Perhaps as a rebuke to the girl, or maybe just a taunt, Tess took off her t-shirt so that she was just wearing her bikini top and cutoffs. More sun on her burnt skin. I'll stop there and introduce the author of one of my most anticipated books of 2025. Benedict Nguyen is a dancer and gym buff. Between pistol squats and muscle ups, she works as a creative producer in live performance. She's written for The Baffler, Bomb, Los Angeles Review of Books, Vanity Fair, the Brooklyn Rail, The Margins, and other publications. In 2022, she published Nasty Notes, the redacted email zine on freelance labor. Her debut novel, Hot Girls with Balls, is forthcoming in July 2025 from Catapult Books.
Thanks, Laura. So incredible to hear my cohort members' novel excerpts echoing everyone else's thanks. My novel is Hot Girls with Balls. It's a satire about two indoor volleyball players who are rivals on rival teams, but they're also lovers, and they're also two Asian American trans women who play for the men's league. Because ha ha ha. I'm going to read this excerpt showing one of our heroines, who's named Six, at practice, and she's watching one of her younger teammates, helping one of her younger teammates practice a really basic move and having a crisis about it. Morning at the Swartek home arena, a bent over number 6'7", 204 pounds, middle blocker, swung her arms behind her ass and bounded into the air, her arms propelling her armpits clear above the net, her thick braid twirling behind her. Across the net, Allen, number 4, 6'6", 198 pounds, outside hitter, slapped the ball and it bent Six's fingertips back. Its trajectory was too fast, too high for any of her fellow second stringers in the back row to catch it. Yes, exactly. That's it, Allen, Coach Pete said. What Pete didn't say was that Six had had plenty of time to telegraph Allen's move. Even if she hadn't known his play, a blockout. Allen wasn't slow. If anything, Six felt slow and was probably slowing. Rather, it was that Allen still moved with amateurish predictability. The alignment of his line of sight and plane of his right wrist swing betrayed his plan before Six had to even think about bending her knees. Sure, he might fake out, but he had yet to set that precedent. Six could have stopped the ball blindfolded if she wanted. But right now, her job was to hold back and help their baby-faced outside hitter practice this most basic move. Obviously, Swartek was thinking long game with him. All right, one more time, Pete called. This time, Six, you can try to block him a little bit more. Allen smiled sheepishly, almost apologetically, at Six. Six obviously wasn't a gender essentialist, but this was a boy among men, real men. If Six were being held by this floppy-haired, goofy-cheeked newbie, she'd quit. But he wasn't the problem. After a few more goes of Allen thwacking the ball at different angles, Six let herself show the slightest hint of weariness. She hoped the coaching staff wasn't focused on her massaging her knees. This wasn't an inordinate amount of jumping, but she wasn't Allen's age anymore. She couldn't tell if she'd even have the endurance to start again. Did she need more reps or more rest? She'd survived COVID, but had no idea how much residual viral deterioration was wreaking havoc in her circulatory system. At age 27, inviting the audience to give a collective eye roll at our protagonist. At age 27, she was nearing the age in professional volleyball where her physical peak was either approaching or just past. What kept players on teams besides sturdy joints was the wisdom and maturity to play smarter than their younger and faster teammates. On a new team, seniority had Six aging ahead, but falling behind. Before the assistant coach's whistle finished its toot 6 was up, bouncing between her 2 feet, pretending her legs were thick springs ready to bounce back. Thank you, everyone. I get to introduce Miranda Schmidt, whose work circles the folkloric, the familial, queer magic, and the more than human world. Their writing has appeared in Tri-Quarterly, Orion, Electric Literature, Catapult, Phoebe, and more. Originally from the Midwest, Miranda now lives in Portland, Oregon. Their ongoing newsletter and teaching project, Writing Toward Nature, explores methods for bringing the more than human more deeply into our writing craft. Miranda's debut novel, Leafskin, is out now from Stillhouse Press. It's a story about queer love and family making. Rooted in folklore and poetry, Leafskin explores acts of creation and our time of environmental destruction.
And thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to my wonderful cohort that it's been really wonderful to meet with you on Wednesdays through all of this. And thank you poets and writers and get the word out. And yeah, it's been a good experience. So I'm gonna read a little from Leafskin. This is it. This is Leafskin, just out from Stillhouse Press. And I'm gonna read a section from a little ways in. It's a flashback. It's a short sequence. Joe and Ness are in college and they're on a trip to the coast. Joe is a poet and Ness is a painter. And I think that's all you need to know. I woke up with an image, Ness told her. I woke with a poem, Joe said, thinking her voice still sounded like sleeping, somehow both a part of and apart from her body. Ness smiled. This place is like that. It always gives me dreams. Can I see yours? Ness added a line before turning the sketch pad around so she could see. There, penciled out, was the underwater tree from Joe's dream. It was differently angled, all distinctly in Ness's style, but all the parts were there. The currants, the stripped leaves, the solid weathering trunk, the glinting roots. It was like seeing her own dream through Ness's eyes. Ness frowned. You hate it. I dreamed it. Exactly, that's exactly the tree from my dream. Really? Joe nodded. Ness smiled, the anticipating smile of someone on the brink of discovery. Your poem. Her poem. They both stared at the poem for a long time before looking back at each other. Wow, Ness said. We had the same dream. How? I told you this house was magic. There was something moving through the air between them, a current that pulled. Joe knew they both felt it, this strange sense of mind touching mind. Like a tiny muscle she never knew existed until it moved itself. The source of the feeling was utterly unlocatable. They were kissing then, and Ness was pulling off her t-shirt. Joe was moving on top of her, pressing herself against her, feeling animal. But even as they wrapped themselves up in each other, they could not get close enough. The vibrations of bodies, all the shifting skin and bones, got in the way. It was the same the next night and the next. A dream, a sketch, a poem pulled from the space before waking. Soon they were both waking in the middle of the night, writing and painting in the dark, possessed by the same visions. They worked almost without thinking, elemental, passing notes and sketches back and forth, shifting them, changing and revising words and lines, trying ways to weave the forms together. Joe wrote her poems on the canvases before Ness painted over them, the words secreted beneath the image. They tried scraping away some of the paint, letting select words peek through, hinting at the more underneath. Joe felt dizzy watching the retranslations. The dreams filtered through their two perspectives, the way they saw them different yet the same. Looking at the paintings, it was as if she was catching someone else's memory, mingling with her own. It became difficult to tell where each vision ended and the other began. There was always a point for each painting poem where it became impossible to know, even in her own mind, which vision was hers. One night, the flood came into their dreaming, and they dreamed together, tangled up inside the rush of water, heavy fast of fate felt undertow. Movement cannot be, suspension of objects. Brush and canvas float, words run over, bleed the paint, liquefy the paper. They awoke all at once to the sound of rushing water, heavy and pounding like an invasion of strangers. Before Jo could fully open her eyes to the blue glow of pre-dawn, Ness was already running downstairs. She heard the thumps as Ness took them 2 at a time. Jo ran after her, all the creaks of the floorboard echoing nightmare loud beneath her feet. At the foot of the stairs, Ness stood silent, watching the water pool over the living room, floating canvases and brushes and pencils, drowning the notebooks. Jo couldn't understand what she was seeing. Her first thought was that the ocean had broken into the house, that they had somehow pulled it to them with all their dreaming, that their art making had created a force to escape the bounds of them. When her waking self came back to her, she knew such things to be impossible. But even in the future, she will always half believe that that's exactly what caused the flood, that it wasn't the broken old pipe at all, but the ocean itself come to find them. Ness waded into the water and Jo saw it, for just a moment, through dream-dusted eyes, the silver that webbed over her like a second skin, like fur. She blinked and the vision was gone, and it was only Ness again, human and wet, lifting drifting canvases from the water and murmuring, "Ruined, ruined." And I have the pleasure of introducing Daniel Tam-Claiborne, whose novel, Transplants, was a finalist for the 2023 Penn Bellwether Prize for Socially Engaged Fiction and is forthcoming in May 2025 from Regalo Press, Simon & Schuster. His writing has appeared in Catapult, Literary Hub, Off Assignment, The Rumpus, HuffPost, and elsewhere. A 2022 National Endowment for the Arts Literature Fellow, he has also received support from the U.S. Fulbright Program, Kundiman, Sewanee Writers Conference, the New York State Summer Program, Writers Institute, and others. Daniel holds degrees from Oberlin College, Yale University, and the MFA program for writers at Warren Wilson College.
Thank you so much, Miranda, and so wonderful to be here with all of you. I'm just going to echo a few of the thanks from all of my cohort mates to Jared and Ricardo, first and foremost, for stewarding this cohort and so generously inviting me to take part, to Jennifer for so valiantly troubleshooting our questions and so gently assuaging our fears, of which there are many. Thank you to all of my friends and fellow cohort mates. I'm looking forward to a lifetime of writing and learning and commiserating together. And thank you all so much for being here until the bitter end. I really, really appreciate you spending time with us this evening. So I'll be reading from my novel Transplants, which is coming out on May 13th from Regalo Press, Simon & Schuster. It's a coming-of-age story following 2 young women, one who's Chinese and one who's Chinese American, as they learn what it means to survive in a world that doesn't know where either of them belong. So I'm going to read from about 100 pages into the book. Basically, all you need to know is Lynn, who is a Chinese-American student, gets expelled from the university where she's attending in rural China, and she is persuaded to move to the United States, to Cleveland, which is the hometown of Liz, and continue to pursue her degree at a community college near Liz's hometown of Akron. So this is her first trip to the United States. For 14 hours, Lynn couldn't sleep. She slumped against the hard armrest by the window, heaved the scratchy blue blanket up to her neck. The pressure in the cabin made her ears ache. She feared that if she ate or drank anything, it would upset her already iffy stomach. She was too embarrassed to ask to leave her seat, let alone attempt the Taiji Chuan her mother insisted would promote proper blood circulation. Whenever Lynn closed her eyes, she saw visions play out on the underside of her eyelids. Plane propeller malfunctioning, tail catching fire, crew and passengers strapping on oxygen masks like patients admitted to a ward. But with her eyes open, Lynn saw her surroundings in a different light. She sneaked glances through the plastic shutter, staring at the dark mass moving just beyond her reach. The sky looked as limitless as the ocean, clouds like tiny swells of tide covered in fog. For the first time in months, she was above something, charting her own path. Whatever had happened up until then wasn't the least bit important. She was moving to a place where no one knew the slightest thing about her past. Lynn transferred planes in Detroit, a city so free of her preconceptions that she initially mistook it for Cleveland. The baggage claim felt like a fever dream, carpeted floors and cinder block columns in all directions, until, finally, She was ushered into a great hall bathed in white. The man at customs stamped her passport after only barely glancing down, and, much to Lynn's relief, let her pass without asking a single question. Lynn spotted Phil first. Sorry, Phil is Liz's brother, who she goes to live with, who's kind of a ne'er-do-well. Outside of the baggage carousel, he was dressed in khaki pants, wool coat, a burgundy scarf. He was the male version of Liz, thin eyebrows, widow's peak, but with a heft to his midsection and high cheekbones that gave him the impression of someone perpetually pleased with himself. "You must be Lynn," he said, extending a stiff hand. "Welcome to the Promised Land." Lynn nodded weakly, still too overwhelmed to speak. She couldn't get over the shock of seeing hundreds of people and hearing only English come out. "You must be starving," Phil said, as Lynn stepped up into the cab of his station wagon. The air was so crisp it made Lynn's eyes water. Phil switched on the ignition, and the car lurched to life like a startled animal. The lanes on the highway multiplied, 2 to 4, then 8, unfolding like a paper fan. In the Costco parking lot in Avon, the grid of vehicles looked vast enough to be its own city. All her life, Lynn was used to having just as much as she needed. She never wanted for warm clothing or school supplies, or worried about going to sleep hungry. And yet, once inside, she found it hard to grasp the abundance. Aluminum cans as wide as her thigh, prawns enough to have depleted an estuary, aisles that she could lie lengthwise in and still not reach the ends of. "Free samples are over there," Phil said, motioning with his finger. "Eat as much as you want." Lynn rubbed her eyes, staring dizzily at the rows of boxes and bottles lit with fluorescent lighting. She barely averted a couple pushing a shopping cart large enough to pilot. Compared to the markets back home, the scale of choice was paralyzing. Mounds of peppers were arranged in different hued pyramids, lined up like purses in a luxury store. Abundance was the wrong word. Lynn couldn't get over the excess. No one, she was sure, needed this much. It was obscene, and yet there was a part of her that was taken by it too. She wondered what it would be like to live that way, to be so full of sustenance that she could hardly breathe, to suffocate on extravagance. "Ready?" Phil said, sounding impatient. Lynn settled on a double pack of bread, picking up and examining a half dozen before putting them back on the shelf, trying to discern the difference between wheat and pumpernickel and multigrain. At the cash register, Lynn peeled back a 20 from the stack of fresh bills she'd exchanged at the airport. Phil looked at her and nodded, as if testing her loyalties. He handed the woman at the counter his membership card, but didn't offer to pay. I'll stop there. Thank you so much. And I will go ahead and throw things back over to Jennifer.
Hi again. Oh my gosh, that was really beautiful and amazing, everyone's readings. It was just a joy to get to hear you all read from your novels. Yeah, I want to take a moment again to thank poets and writers for hosting this event and for hosting Get the Word Out, the Get the Word Out cohort. And yeah, gonna throw it to Ricardo.
Fabulous. Um, Thanks so much, Jennifer. Another round of virtual applause and love for this year's Get the Word Out Fiction Fellows. I'm still buzzing with language, and I have to go sit down, I think, afterwards. But to wind down the event, I wanted to share 3 more items just to keep in mind as you return to your regularly scheduled programming, as it were. First, if you've enjoyed tonight's readings, and I know many of you have, please support these authors and their books using the links above that were shared during the readings, or at the bookshop link that I'm about to drop in just a second. Please support them. Show your love. I hope all of your to-be-read piles are getting just a little bit larger after tonight. Second, as we mentioned, Get the Word Out is a publicity incubator for books, for fiction writers and poets with forthcoming books. We will begin to accept applications for the next cohort, and that's going to be for writers with forthcoming books of fiction beginning June 1st. If you opted to sign up for our weekly update newsletter, you're already ahead of the curve. You'll be reminded as that June 1st date approaches. Otherwise, please visit at pw.org/get the word out to learn more. And lastly and thirdly, if you are leaving inspired and ready to write or read, check out our website, pw.org, for resources, including our online professional development and craft classes, databases for grants, contests, awards, and of course, funding for readings and workshops. Thank you again for joining us. Have a lovely evening.